Hey guys, Comic Crack back again. I'm going to do a couple of, it's probably going to be 3 one-shot videos today. In the background this time is a track that me and a friend of mine from work, Tapu, did together. Eat Your Beats. I did this album a year ago now probably, and had a drum track left over that I never really knew what to do with. So I gave just the drum track to 3 or 4 different people, and each of them did their own versions of it, and this is Ty's version, working with my drums. This one impressed me the most just because me and some of my friends are more into more underground, experimental, that sort of thing, stranger types of music, but Ty is really more towards like mainstream electronic music, and he's an MC and stuff, and so I knew that I'd get a really unique take, but when this came back it just completely blew my mind. It's pretty incredible. Anyway, enough self-praise. This video we'll talk about Cinder and Ashe, a 4-issue mini from DC. And this is Gerry Conway and Jose Garcia Lopez. Now let me just double check. Colors, Orlando. Not sure the first name. Let's see. Just says Orlando every time. I'm sure with a bit of looking at to find out who that is, because it was the colors that I had the most issue with in here, which we'll talk about in a minute. So this is another mini-series I found in my hunt that, I don't know, it just looked really interesting. I really liked the covers quite a bit. It looked like it would be an intriguing little story. And when it's cheap and just 4 issues, why not? So it takes place in, let's see, it came out in '88. I think it's supposed to be kind of that time in New Orleans. I think it's supposed to be mid to late '80s in the story. I can't quite remember. So the first issue, we get an introduction to our 2 main characters. There's a look at some of the interiors there. They're kind of not quite private eyes. They take care of people's problems. They're for hire, and he's a war veteran. She's from Saigon, and that brings me to my first issue, that the entire 4 comics I just could not get past. Let me see if I can find a good picture here to illustrate, well, a good bad picture here to illustrate that. An Asian woman, few Asian women that they just decided, hey, let's just go full on and just color them yellow. That won't be so bad, will it? Possibly the most offensive thing to me in this book. And like I said, for the 4 issues, I just couldn't get past it. Every time I saw her and saw her colored in that yellow, and I mean, they didn't do it on the front cover of that one. I mean, there's a little bit of it there. Sorry, there. There's a little more of it there, but even that looks a little fleshier. So, man, that's unfortunate. So they get into this story. They get hired by a guy whose wife, I believe, has been kidnapped, and he wants to know, or daughter has been kidnapped and wants to know what's going on. Of course, everything ties into their past, especially her past, with the guy whose name escapes me, Lacey, I think. Yeah, Lacey is his name, from her past. So there's Lacey right there. Growing up, her mother was killed, so she started working on the streets as far as like petty criminal, petty thief, pickpocket. Lacey was around, and he had kind of control over the prostitution ring and all the criminal activities, and she had to pay money to him, and eventually, when she gets old enough, he decides that he wants to be with her, and it just kind of goes downhill from there. They think that they've killed him in the past, but he hasn't died, and he's come back, and just by circumstances, their paths have crossed. So now it's kind of a showdown again between our Cinder and Ashe and Lacey. Show you a couple more interiors. Like, I went from enjoying the interiors enough to, like I said, just really disliking them quite a bit. The rest of the coloring is okay. It's interesting this time period for me, 80s, when it comes to comics. I never really read a lot in the 80s of mainstream stuff, and part of it was the appeal. Just the art didn't look good to me. But it's funny now, looking back at some of this art, it really has a neat mixture of European influence and North American influence. I mean, this is definitely more like North American comic style for sure. The story itself was okay, a little convoluted and a little convenient, but whatever, it's a comic book. And one thing I did like in the storytelling, as far as when the characters were talking, they really did have their own distinct voice, and they would trade off, narration would trade off between Cinder and Ashe, and I thought that was handled very, very well. They really tried to give him an accent, like a New Orleans, French accent. I'm missing the word here. So some of that was a little sloppy. It seemed a little forced, because it's hard to kind of write accents, I think, when you're writing them in a book, unless you handle it very well. There's some more of the, forget about it. Anyway, so I wouldn't, like, this doesn't come highly, highly recommended. It was one of those that I read, and it probably won't stick with me. I probably wouldn't go back and read it again like I would some of the other ones, the one that I'm going to talk about, and the Sticks from Sirius that I just finished talking about. Those will stick with me a lot more than this one will. But it was a fun enough read. Again, the joy of a miniseries. 4 issues, the story's done. You're not committed to a lot, and again, it was all cheap. Cinder and Ashe, DC. What you're listening to right now is a guy, King SOLY, and it's a Tamil dub from a compilation Box of Dub 2. Worth checking out. It's a really, really, really nice tune. So there you go. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in a minute with the last video of the day.